This weekend is devoted to the future of religion, and I've introduced one kind of paradoxical gimmick into the series of seminars by saying that the best kind of future we can envisage is one in which we get rid of the idea of the future as an area of experience that solves problems. It doesn't. Western man has been obsessed with history in a way that is quite unlike any other culture, and has seen the course of human events as a series of progressive steps towards a goal in the beyond. And you will see that this is absolutely basic to the theology of the Jewish and Christian religions as we now know them. Although it wasn't necessarily always so, they are absolutely wedded to the idea that the significance of human life has historical significance. That is to say, the present has in itself no justification. What we do now is only justified in terms of the way it leads in some kind of progressive pattern towards tomorrow. And therefore, there is that, to use Tennyson's phrase, one far-off divine event to which all creation moves. And we may never enjoy that. Maybe our children will. Maybe our children's children will. Although, actually, the result of this is going in exactly the opposite direction to that of its intention. Living in a historical society, the one far-off divine event to which all creation moves is, so far as anybody can see it, the explosion of a cobalt bomb which will get rid of all life on the planet. That's history for you. And therefore, the urgent task of today is to stop history, and to do this by creating a diversion from history. Now, I've explained this in past seminars, but because some of you are here for the first time today, I'm just going to go over this briefly. Let's suppose we get a situation where you've got a gambling casino, and there's been a very dangerous game with high stakes going on for most of the night. The stakes are getting higher and higher, and there's a huge assemblage of people gathered around this table where the contestants are betting not only thousands, millions, and billions of dollars. They've finally brought out their nuclear weapons. They've said, "I dare you to blow the scene up first." Wowee, what a gamble. Here you know. It's like sitting in a powder magazine with a box of matches saying, "If you don't agree with me, I'll drop the match and blow us both up." So that's the kind of game that's been going on, and it's on a collision course. No one can stop it because the mental set of the contestants is such that they can't give up. Unfortunately, both of them believe in the life hereafter in some funny way. Perhaps the Russians don't believe in the life hereafter, but they call the Westerns. Christians tend to believe in it. Once, many years ago, Professor Urey of the University of Chicago gave a talk to the assembled Episcopal clergy of the Diocese of Chicago, raising all sorts of horrors about atomic bombs. An old man got up, the bishop of the Suffragan Bishop of Chicago, Bishop Randall, and said, after the clergy had expressed great concern, "I don't know what all you people are so disturbed about, because all this man has told us is that we're going to die. And we knew that already. And as Christians, we are not afraid of death." So the clergy got up and said, "Hey, all right, it's all right for you, Bishop Randall. You're an old man, and you don't have the problems of us young people with children and families and all that kind of thing. But you see what a dangerous man, a man who believes in the life hereafter, can be, because he can say, 'Better be dead than red,' as he believes in a future beyond the grave in which accounts will be settled and the rest will be proved wrong." Now, I'm trying to indicate what I stand for myself as a sort of half-baked representative of the traditions of the Orient. It's not a future life beyond the grave in the ordinary sense of the word, but the realization that our true life is timeless, that we don't have a future in the sense that we will not carry over into future manifestations of our existence, our personal memories. There will be future manifestations of our existence, only we won't know it. We will experience it again and again, just as we do now, without remembering any past. Because if we did carry over into the future an indefinite, conscious memory of our past, we would be bored. We would say, "This is the same old thing over and over again, and we've had enough of it." But nature, just as we have in our biology, our physiology and elimination system alongside an eating system. So in our psychology, we have a forgetting system as well as a memory. And it's equally important. If you cannot erase, if you cannot wipe the slate clean, that's the whole. That's the real meaning of the Christian idea of forgiveness, of the Jewish idea of the year of Jubilee. Forget it. Then we can begin life anew and see this familiar world with the eyes of children, who find it all absolutely astonishing. As we get older, we say, oh, well, Hohem, we've seen the sun rise many times, and therefore we need to forget. That's the mystery of death. And therefore, a style of life which sets the future always as a thing to be worked for seems to me biologically, physiologically, and psychologically unsound, because it's always preparation and lacks the verve, as well as the nerve, to live now. So then, this is one of the reasons why today the most extraordinary changes are going on in people's thinking. See, basically, people really do know what's good for them. They have an obscure, unconscious sense. De Tocqueville once said, "A democracy is always right, but for the wrong reasons, and this is why our laws in the British and American tradition are really so sane. Insofar as they say, well, ultimately, the people must decide what they want. Nobody knows. No individual knows what is good for the people. The people themselves know. They don't know why, but they know in an obscure way. And therefore, you will find that at a moment when human survival is in jeopardy, there begins to be, from, as it were, the grassroots of society, a rumbling revolution that something's got to be different. And what has got to be different is, of course, that our consciousness has to be changed. Western civilization, and to some extent Oriental civilization, has gone on these many centuries with an experience of what it is to be alive, what it is to be human, what it is to be a person. That is a hallucination, namely, that you are an independent center of consciousness and volition inside a capsule of skin, looking out upon, confronting, a world that is not you, that is alien. Insofar as that world is not a human world, and most of it isn't, it is stupid, mechanical, blind. Therefore, there's this sense of intense hostility toward the external world and the idea, so much promoted by the Jewish and Christian traditions, that the valuable thing about being human is that you are a person. We'll go into that word, person, but the idea is that the supremely valuable thing about human life is that you are an individual ego, and that by the force of your psychological effort and your independent will, you are going to control and transform the world. And therefore, any point of view which puts down in any way the individual ego and its power to exercise mind over matter is repugnant to our cultural tradition. This is very strong in the United States. I've often said, scratch an American and find a Christian Scientist, someone who believes that you should not, in any way, be obligated to depend upon the physical aids of life. If you're in pain, if you have a headache, well, you shouldn't take aspirin. You should use your willpower or your faith or something you know and overcome it that way. And these people are always blind to the fact that they do have to eat every day. There are all sorts of fantasies, a half-baked Oriental notion or two, about people who definitely need to eat, who are surviving on one banana and a glass of water per day and the like. And that strikes the imagination of our culture. What would be the ideal? That's why we cook so badly. We do not eat with gusto like the French. We eat apologetically like the British. So, this extraordinary fascination with the good of human life as being summed up in the ego and its energy and its independence is an idea that it's something to be said for it. But you can always have too much of a good thing. Now, I must repeat something that is always necessary to understand. Anything I'm saying is that I exaggerate, instead of being moderate and taking due consideration for all possible points of view, whereby we come to a measured, mature, and balanced view of things. If you do that as a philosopher, nobody will listen to you. So what you do is you make an exaggeration in a certain direction to balance and compensate for an exaggeration that's gone in the other direction. So, with our culture, the exaggeration has gone in the direction of the value and sacredness of the ego. So I'm pitching the cause in the other direction and saying the ego is a hallucination. And that's what's the trouble with us. We believe in this, and therefore, in the possession of our enormous technology, we are fighting the external world and destroying it. Look around in every direction. That's lovely. Marin County is being destroyed by smog, automobiles, tracks, dwellings, water pollution, air pollution, disregard of the forests. You could go a little further up north and take a plane ride to Seattle to see what's been happening. It's just terrible. So, we then find ourselves in this situation that we have inherited religions which emphasize salvation in the future, beyond death maybe, or the Jewish people don't so much emphasize the idea of immortality. Jewish people think of the messianic hope that the day of the Lord is coming someday, when there will be a general knocking of heads together, and the wisdom of Moses and Solomon will be vindicated. But it's all set for the future, and therefore, in both the Jewish and the Christian traditions, mystical religion is suspect. There are not many Jewish mystics. Yes, the Hasidim are a special sect, but among Christians, you will not find the mystical very much favored. There are great Christian mystics, but the Catholic Church always says of mystical experience that it is an extraordinary grace. And they mean by using the word extraordinary extraordinary. That is to say, it is something of a peculiarity, like a miracle that's safe to certain individuals outside ordinary Christianity. Ordinary Christianity, way back in the 4th century, definitely rejected Gnosticism in favor of faith. Knowledge was rejected. One should not have knowledge of divine things. One should believe, because wherever anybody claimed in knowledge, they were in danger of the sin of spiritual pride. But you can equally be proud of my faith is stronger, and your faith makes no difference. So, the emphasis in the whole of the Christian tradition and religion has been knowledge of God in terms of belief, belief in a revelation, belief in a dogma. And so Christianity has not only not encouraged, but actually suppressed any religious manifestation which emphasized the primacy of experience, of knowing the divine as distinct from believing in the divine. Oriental religion, Hindu, Buddhist, is concerned not with belief at all, not with dogma, because it would say immediately, how can you express divine things in words? All words are invalid when it comes to the ultimate reality. But it would say, on the other hand, the words may be invalid. There is the possibility of experiencing it. And so the right experience, rather than the right belief, is a concern of Oriental religion, so that the goal of the Buddhist and the Hindu is not salvation. It is liberation. Liberation in terms of an experience, which is called bodhi or awakening, samadhi or unity of consciousness, moksha, liberation, nirvana, letting go. That's what it really means. Breathing out, letting go of your grasp on the breath of life. Now, therefore, the religions, so-called religions of the Orient, have therefore become of extraordinary fascination to Western people since the 19th century. Publishers are selling literally millions of books throughout the Western world on yoga, Vedanta, Zen, Taoism, especially to young people. People under 25, if they have any pretensions to education at all, have read this about interest in, because, as I said, they have what Carl Rogers calls positive growth potential. That is to say, knowing fundamentally when to get in out of the rain, and that what is needed for Western culture, for technological culture, whether Western or Eastern, is a new kind of human being. Not as a moral necessity. You know what we see when we talk about a new man in a Christian or in a Jewish context. It's always in terms of the preaching, that you should reform, you should take yourself in hand, you should talk seriously to yourself and be converted. It doesn't work anymore. Never did really work, because a person who is converted to an unselfish style of life by preaching is always a hypocrite, because he's not really been changed. He's trying to change. He knows he ought to change. He feels guilty because of the style of life which he has lived in the P.